Prince Albert was born in 1819 near Coburg in Germany. He married Queen Victoria on the 10th of February 1840. He was given the title Prince Consort, as traditionally the husbands of reigning sovereigns are not given the title king. They were married for over 21 years, and it was a love match. Although they had quite different personalities, they shared a great deal of passions and interests. When Albert died on the 14th of December 1861, aged only 42, Victoria was devastated, and she spent the rest of her life in mourning. Although many of Queen Victoria's clothes survive, very few of Albert's do. We know Victoria valued his clothing after his death. She was even buried with one of his dressing gowns. There's very strong evidence that this dressing gown and shirt are rare survivors from his wardrobe. We acquired this dressing gown for the Royal Ceremonial Dress Collection at auction in 2019. It was sold by the great-great-grandchild of Rudolph Löhlein, Prince Albert's valet from 1847 until 1861. Löhlein, like Albert, was from Coburg. Queen Victoria described him as faithful and trusty, and she particularly appreciated how tenderly he had nursed Albert while the prince was dying. After Albert's death, he continued to work in Queen Victoria's service. Löhlein's family passed the dressing gown down from generation to generation, meaning the provenance to Prince Albert and the royal household are very strong indeed. It's also got a coronet embroidered inside, similar to the way other items of royal clothing are marked. We normally think about Victorian men's clothing as being very dark and sombre, but this dressing gown shows that men could enjoy colour and pattern, especially in more private garments like this. A gown like this would have been worn over a shirt and trousers at breakfast, and then maybe later in the day to work in the library or office at home. It's a beautiful quality garment in a soft silk fabric. It's printed all over in a vibrant floral design, and like men's frock coats at the time, is quite structured and tailored. The pattern has faded a bit in a few places, but where it hasn't, you can see how bright the colours were. A wonderful portrait survives of Albert wearing a similar dressing gown. He's shown probably in his own room, leaning against a fireplace with his washstand behind. He's reading a book, and I think this portrait shows how a garment like this would have been worn in the prince's more private spaces to pursue his own interests or business. Victoria always kept a copy of this portrait on her writing table, one of many ways she remembered the prince after his death. The dressing gown has pockets in the tails at the back, and when we were cleaning and conserving the garment, we found a leaf and a few strands of hair in one of those pockets. We don't know if that leaf came from Albert, but I like to think with his wide-ranging scientific interests, he might have picked up a plant that he thought was interesting and put it in his pocket to look at later. We also have this shirt that we purchased in 2023. It's a high-quality garment, typical of men's shirts of the mid-19th century. Men would have worn shirts like this as a first layer under their other clothes. While we don't know the early provenance of this shirt, it has a royal laundry mark on it, which is identical to the marks you find on Queen Victoria's and her children's clothes. The embroidered laundry mark has a crown, showing it's royal, the letter A, showing it belonged to somebody whose name began with that letter, and the date, 1854. It's a man-sized shirt, and the only royal man at that date, with a name beginning with A, was Albert. Laundry marks like this would have been used to trace clothing as it went through the royal laundry, making sure everybody got their right clothes back. The significance of the number 12 has been lost to us, but it might have been part of a system used for tracking and ordering royal clothing. The shirt is made from fine linen, and like many shirts of the time, it was cut in rectangles. This is a very efficient way of cutting fabric with no wastage, and it's a way of making shirts that went back hundreds of years. Prince Albert was a remarkable man, a hard-working consort to Queen Victoria. His greatest achievement was the Great Exhibition of 1851, and we can still see the legacy of it today in the Albertopolis area of South Kensington in London, with institutions like Imperial College, the Victoria and Albert Museum, and the Royal Albert Hall. It's extraordinary that these garments might have come from Prince Albert's wardrobe, making them among the most important pieces in historic royal palaces collection.